Good evening.
Good evening.
That was polite, wasn't it?
Good evening.
Good evening. So tonight we have Tony.
Good evening.
Who chose to join us because he believed he needed to take part tonight. We've got Sonia from Hong Kong. We don't know what her belief is about being here. We've got Tracy from Australia, and we don't know what her belief is yet. We've got Pia from Bali, and she doesn't have any beliefs, so that's okay. And we've got Tandy from Zambia, who believes that her internet will be okay, but if it causes problems, you will miss her beautiful face because she's going to switch the video off and just listen. And if her video pops on again, everybody be ready because it means she's got something to say. How about that? Do you think we can make that work?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And
you
welcome
can
to
do.
the audience. We've got Sarupa, Haresh, Ola, and Elaine present at the moment. So tonight we're talking about beliefs from the basis of how they can impact our ability to speak up. So this free speech bit is still kind of continuing, isn't it? Hi, Anam. So who would like to start by sharing their perspective on this topic?
I'll go.
Okay.
So there was something that was spoken of earlier, which really resonated when we were young, for instance, and we're told, you're to be seen, not to be heard until you're spoken to. It tends to take you through your life that unless you're actually questioned or, someone says something to you, you tend to be quiet. And that's something is a belief that I actually didn't quite see that I was carrying till recently when I started speaking up a little bit more. I didn't speak very much prior to that. So, until you see something, you don't even know you're carrying it till you see it.
Yeah.
Then when you see it, you can do something about it.
But also, don't you think when you do see it, sometimes it can be quite a shock to think that program's been running in the background all this time.
Absolutely.
And how it's impacted things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sonia.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like we at school have been taught that do not talk until the teacher asks you, and you wait until the very end. The teacher say now it's okay to ask any questions. And also what resonates is that when we're a kid, we also told if we see something we don't understand or something seems negative, we cannot say to the elderly. If it's the elderly, you're not allowed to give any feedback because it's looked at very, very impolite. So now even if the elderly, you always have this belief that there is a certain way to talk to and you cannot cross that line. Otherwise, even it's just something you feel is constructive, it can be really seen as very impolite, bad manners. Yeah.
That's why they treat us the way they do. Because we were elderly. They're very polite to us.
I should think so too.
Except my belief is that I'm not elderly, so I suppose that shoots that one down. But you're right. We are taught these things, and we're taught them when we're really young. We take them on board, and unless something happens to make us question, we don't question, do we? What do you think, Tracy?
Well, I've realised that a belief is that unless I can get something right and not offend others or harm others in some way, it's not okay to speak about that particular thing. And I can't progress forward if I don't get something right. So I feel I kind of learnt that in school. If I didn't pass an examination or I didn't qualify by being measured by another, I couldn't move forward.
Yeah.
Because I was helped. Yeah, I was. And I didn't realise the impact until having this conversation now, because when I was in primary school, I was told I had to go, my teacher told my mother I had to be taken to a handicapped school for kids, a school for handicapped kids, because I couldn't learn, because I wasn't seeing things the way they wanted me to see it.
Wow. Now that is a whole different conversation.
Right.
It's good you brought it in here because that can lead to a belief. But that is a powerful conversation. I'd like you to email me after this meeting and we'll add that to the list.
Sure.
Interesting, as Elaine said, yes, you mustn't contradict your superiors or elders, your superiors or elders, either one. It's true. It's what happens. Tandy.
Yes. In Africa, we're supposed to listen to our elders and contradict them in a very, very polite way. We're supposed to be diplomatic about everything, and it hinders speech because when the elder are not wise, you can't really like contradict them or correct them. And I've seen that a lot in our politics. And so the politician has taken on the role of the elder, like in the village, and they're not very keen to be contradicted, and they don't want to be contradicted. So for me, I find that very disturbing, especially as we're supposed to live in a democracy. If you can't contradict or correct your elders, it's very difficult to have free speech.
Yeah, it is. And that's another belief, that age brings wisdom.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've met some really stupid elderly people. I've
Totally,
met some
Helen.
equally stupid young people. Wisdom isn't defined by age.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Tandy, when they're supposed to be the ones that are leading us, and we can't say, excuse me, do you think perhaps we could look at this differently? It makes it challenging. We expect our leaders to be wise, don't we?
Yeah,
Yes.
we do.
What do you reckon about this belief systems
Well, I think
impacting?
you have a belief system that you grow up with, which has been given to you, as Tandy says, you know, like in Western culture, from your grandparents or teachers, whatever, people always older than yourself. And you grow up with this belief, but that becomes a habit. And like Tracy was saying, until something happens that you realise what actually going on, you'll go merrily sailing through your rest of your life. Keep repeating that pattern, that habit. So the belief system goes out the window because it's replaced by habit.
Yeah. And it's interesting what Tracy was saying, because my brother was left-handed. And when we were kids in the 50s, the belief was that if you were left-handed, the devil owned you.
Oh, wow.
So when he started school and he started to write with his left hand, they tied his hand behind his back so that he had to write with his right hand. Until my dad found out. And he put a stop to it. But that was a belief, that if you were left-handed, you belonged to the devil. The devil had got your soul. And so they would tie the hand behind the back, believing that they were saving this soul. But you can imagine the impact it had, the same as the impact it would have had on Tracy, that because she learns differently, she's handicapped. And I think that's a terrible word. Anyway. So Swaroop has said, let's have a look. Yeah, it can be quite a shock to find a program running, as it's always an oh my God moment as we make it the way it is until we don't. And sometimes people don't get to that until we don't, do they?
No.
Another one here. Tandy's disappeared. She doesn't like talking to us anymore. She's just going to listen. She doesn't want to see us. Having a belief that families should fit specific criteria can definitely get in the way of speaking up. That's true. We expect our family to behave in a certain way and to speak to us in a certain way. So we speak to them that way, in that pattern. What Anita has said, is political correctness a belief, or is it a belief that creates a political correctness? That is a very good question.
Just like the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, is political correctness a belief, or is it a belief that creates political correctness? And I think it's the latter. How do you feel?
Yeah, I
Same.
think belief creates the political correctness.
Yeah.
Because why did political correctness originate? I feel it's because it's as to not offend certain groups that were different, or people's feelings, to protect their feelings.
Yeah. Pia?
Wouldn't it also be that the more you do something, the more ingrained it becomes anyway? So if you keep repeating the pattern, any pattern, political correctness or whatever, then that belief gets more and more strengthened.
Absolutely.
So they would kind of, they would feed themselves. They would feed each other.
No, but they feed more than that. If you look at it, when political correctness started, we began to stop speaking spontaneously.
Right.
We started thinking, well, not all of us, but that it introduced the concept that we had to think about what we were going to say before we said it to be certain we didn't offend.
Yeah.
And that's fine if everybody is clear what's offensive and what isn't.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that what's offensive is determined by how a person feels in the moment that could be completely different to how anybody else feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's added by things like, if you're in a different culture, different dynamics would be, again, something, a different space of how you need to act or be correctly so.
So what do we do about beliefs then?
Sorry?
So what do we do about our beliefs then? Do we accept that they're there and that they'll pop up to the surface when we need to address them? The reason I'm asking is, where we are at the moment, it's becoming very clear that we don't have, to me, I don't expect everybody to agree, that we don't have free speech.
Yeah.
And I'm even beginning to question whether we really have a democracy, but perhaps I'm just getting a bit weird. What do we do about the beliefs? Because it's not just our beliefs about ourselves, it's our beliefs about how other people should be that's starting to be prominent. So, I mean, Sarupa's got one here, another one, which is quite interesting. In my school years, I wasn't clever because I wasn't white. It was assumed, and I rebelled against it, but disliked my brownness at the same time. And that's interesting because I reckon if you spoke to a lot of kids in the 50s, 60s, perhaps up until the mid-60s, you were stupid because you were poor. You were stupid because you were brown, as in Sarupa's case. You were stupid because there was all these reasons. You weren't Catholic, you weren't Protestant, you weren't this. All these beliefs came in to determine where we fit on the pecking order.
Yeah, as you say, in the schools, when we grew up, to me, if you were different in any way, shape or form, different class, different country, different language, different colour, whatever, if you were different in any way that was visible, then you were
less
disabled,
yeah.
You were slow, there was something mentally wrong with you, and there was always judgments made against you. And in those days, there was no such thing as political correctness, or not under that title anyway. So people could say anything, they could be abusive as they liked. Nobody would say, that's not politically correct. And by the same token, there was no one there also to say, no, you can't treat someone like that.
Yeah.
And it's how you grow up. And I think a lot of that reinforces your belief system of not saying anything.
Yeah.
When I was at school, I was probably, 3 inches high and half an inch thick. I was nothing of me. So everyone used to take the mickey out of me because I was so small and tiny. And you're inferior. However, whatever the problem is, you are inferior. And you grow up through life with that belief. And as I say, and that belief controls how you react in any given situation, which then becomes a habit. So you see something happen, you react habitually, not because it's a new way of looking at something. I've always done this in the past. It's my habit, and it's a habit.
Yeah. And beliefs don't have to be bad. They can be good. You can believe that you can get through anything if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. They're not all bad. Elaine's saying, I noticed that more children speak back to their parents in a way that, say, my generation would never be allowed to. I'm curious about this turnaround. Parents fearing their children might not like them. So where does this play into speaking up? There seems to be entitlement building into beliefs. I'll be honest, I think there always was. But yeah, how do you all feel about that comment? Because I think it's a valid comment that Elaine's made.
I feel now it's the other way around. Now it's like you come to the point that like you cannot, you need to let the children to speak to be able to freely express themselves. It's true, like the parents are really worried about. I think it's really because I felt that like because they were told not to speak and they can understand it, so now they're overcompensating the other way, and also if you don't, you kind of being seen like you're bad parents amongst other parents. Because other parents are like, oh, we encourage free thinking, we can encourage, experiment something. If you don't, you're kind of like, okay, I'm a bad parent. So there's also happened, so the kids talk back, and also you're not allowed to discipline them. So because then you'll be seen as like child abuse, whatever. Then that's why I also I hear a lot of when the children talk back to the parents, sometimes the word they use, I was shocked. I would be like, where do this come from? Those words come from. Yeah.
There's no respect in that particular situation. Yep. And I think it is parents wanting to be their kids' friends, which means that they've abdicated their role as parents. You can encourage your children to be expressive without allowing them to say whatever they like, disrespectfully, not just respectfully. It's about respect. If you teach your children to be respectful, they will speak. If they know that they're encouraged to express themselves, they'll do so in a respectful manner. But a lot of them, they've got to blame somebody for something. Anam said, has our beliefs become our sense of identity? That's a good question too. I don't know that it's become it. I think it always was. I honestly believe we were shaped by our beliefs, and the beliefs of the people that brought us up, our parents and our teachers, taught us to act according to a set of beliefs that they had that we absorbed. And that made us who we were. I can still remember being shocked at the violence that erupted in Northern Ireland. Because I was too young the last time it had started before then. So to me, I'd come into this and suddenly, people were fighting and killing each other on the doorstep. And it was supposed to be because of different religious beliefs. It wasn't about religious beliefs at all. But there were certainly strong beliefs operating there. You look at war on either side of the battlefield, the soldiers are being told that God is with them.
Yeah.
That's a belief. You know, you fight to the death because God's with you. But what about the other side? They think the same too. So how does that fit? I'm going to bring Tandy in. She lost her connection. Hi, Tandy.
Hi, sorry, I missed the last 5-6 minutes.
You just didn't want to talk to us. Your belief was that we were talking a load of rubbish.
Far from it. Far from it.
Fortunately, it's being recorded, so we will be able to share the recording.
Good.
So what Rita said, it seems to be a competition about which belief is the right one and the only way. Less discussion and conversation these days about different views. And I think it is about discussion. I think we need to encourage discussion between people.
Well,
Go on, Tony.
on that note, just on the news over here last week, I think on the TV, they made an article about the school that had banned the use of phones, and it was a secondary school. I think, I don't know what year it was, so, maybe 10, 11 years upwards, that they banned the use of mobile phones during school hours, because apparently, people were in class and the phones were ringing and this, that, and the other. So they banned it, and they interviewed the head teacher. Yeah, they interviewed the head teacher, and she said it's just amazing to see. You walk through the playground now at playtime, and instead of everybody, all the kids are actually talking with each other. They're sitting around in groups of people chatting instead of, so they are beginning to find the art of how to converse with someone else instead of some abbreviated computer lingo.
And the interesting thing was the parents objected to the phones being taken off the children, not the children.
Oh, why?
Because then they couldn't contact their children during the day.
But there's
How about
school.
that? Yeah. So that was an interesting belief. Karen has said, I think beliefs give people a sense of security, and maybe internally there's a sense of lack of safety. I think beliefs can undermine our security and they can build our security.
It's what you said earlier. Beliefs can help you, and at the same time they can hold you back, depending on which of the beliefs you encourage to grow and which of the beliefs you don't encourage.
Yeah.
So you kind of bring that balance.
Anybody else?
Yes, it's like like you were taught also, if you work hard enough, like you just keep trying, one day you can succeed, and that's a belief that also sometimes, like some things I don't understand how to work on it, but if you keep going through it and you will succeed. This is also, for me, that is a good belief that can help us through different situations.
Yeah. Do you think we need a reality check? As people, do you think we need a reality check?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we too gullible? Do we just accept what we're told without actually testing it for ourselves and thinking about it?
Well, I see that in the fashion industry all the time, because so many people that I assist, they are influenced by models or influencers on social media, whether it be Instagram models. They don't have to be brand models, but they are so highly influenced by what they're wearing that they love that thing. They want it for themselves. And they don't, when I tell them what to work, they don't understand why they can't have it. So they need to pause, I feel. They just need to pause and stop and look at, well, if you have that, what's the outcome you want?
That's a good question. That is
Why do you want that?
Yeah. Because I don't think we're taught enough. I don't think the kids nowadays are taught enough to help them. Haresh has said, I think more and more people are struggling to understand where their beliefs fit into the world. The idea of everybody being entitled to live the way they choose without being accountable has put everybody into a tailspin. Aspiration is out, popular is in. That's very true.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've had it, but there's been reports over here that they want to introduce into some of the schools that the term grandma, grandpa, mother, father, brother, sister be banned.
Why?
It's gender specific.
It's gender specific. It's cruel to the children who choose to be non-gender.
Like children that are 6, 7 years old are starting to go through the hormonal towards a complete sex reversal.
Yeah, they're starting early.
Not when they're 19 or 20, when they're, some of them aren't even in double figures, but they know that, I'm 8 years old and I know I should have been born a girl. So therefore I start to grow hair, have a feminine haircut, and I wear feminine type clothes. And as you get a bit older, they have tablets that actually stop puberty. They actually put it on hold while you're taking these tablets. And then you can make your mind up, I want to be a female, so I want to develop breasts or whatever. And there's been cases now when the kids have got to 18, 19 years old, they got it wrong. They want it all reversed back to being a boy. But in some instances you can't reverse it.
So yeah, they want to take away gender terms. And what's interesting is that the response has been, we've been lenient about everything else. You're not taking this. So perhaps what it will do, because there's no right or wrong, it's belief systems, perhaps finally we'll get to discuss different things instead of just one group determined that another group has to follow this particular path. Perhaps we can start to look at it and say, well, how's this going to work? And why does it have to be one rule for everybody? Why can't we have diversity? Oh, here we go. This is the ultimate. We can't call sanitary products for women now, as that would make them gender specific. It's madness. Oh, great. So you go into a shop and you ask for sanitary products for a man. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous.
Well, you'll end up, they'll be worth a fortune on the black market. Then you'll go in and say, can I have some tampons, please? Who's it for? For my dog. For my dog. He's got a weak bladder. But I think the whole thing is, it's like parenting and what parents can do and can't do. I think the boundaries have just gone way out. And the kids are growing up without any boundaries, without any, not knowing what's right from wrong. Ultimately, it's just gone to the dogs. Yeah.
Because if they take away the gender, like father, mother, grandparents, or this, then like next step they can take away the name, because they can say it's gender specific name. So then we'll end up with numbers.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah. Are you Fred or are you Frida? Are you Anthony or are you Antoinette? Or
Antonia.
Are you Tony with a Y or Tony with an I?
There's a program called Botched. It's about 2 American plastic surgeons, and we saw it all in one episode. There was a young guy that came in, very handsome guy, very well presented. And cut a long story short, he had fake boobs that he could put on. If he wanted to go out as a woman, he could put these boobs on, put a dress on, and he could go out as a woman. And if he didn't, he'd still got his male bits, so he could go out as a guy. And they said to him, so which do you want to be? And he said, I want to be both. He said, I want to have the choice to be a male one day and a female the next. I don't get that.
Me
Yeah,
neither.
but forms, you apply for a job, whatever, then it just says gender.
Yeah, but they're taking that
But
off.
that takes
That's
off,
not allowed anymore.
You can't put down male or female or
No. Pia, what were you going to say?
Well, the uniqueness seems to be, it seems to be going towards a direction of everybody being standard, the same. Whereas the beauty of the uniqueness, which creates the interest, really, seems to be not something to be supported or looked at. Each one's uniqueness.
So while ever we stifle discussion and debate upon any topic where you've got opposing points of view, you can't have understanding of each other, and you can't find common ground, can you?
No.
No.
And if you've got beliefs that are really strong, I mean, that's when you start trying to convert people.
Yes.
And to convert people, you first have to destroy the belief they already have so that they'll accept your belief. And if your belief hasn't been absorbed totally within them and they hit a challenge, they've got nothing. So while ever we can't be ourselves, respectful of other people, but be ourselves, how are we going to build this great new world that we're going to be stepping into when the pandemic's over? It's not going to work, is it?
No.
Here we go. Here's another one. This is a good topic, obviously. Are we willing to accept the beliefs that formed a part of our global history without judgment? I think that's another big one, because lately people want to change history through condemnation, not understanding that it was what it was at that time, and we grew through that by increasing awareness. I agree. It shows where we were. So what comes to mind with what Haresh is saying for me is the statues that are being toppled, of people that did slavery. Horrendous. Nobody thinks it should come back. But to me, while ever you've got those there, you've got a reminder of how far we've come or not since then. But you take that away. Actually, you take down this, I'm going to throw this in. You take down the statues of slavers, and in a next generation, that next generation will have no comprehension of why Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
They'll have no idea of why it's such an issue, because there's nothing to show where it began and how bad it was. You've taken it away.
and yet you follow that through. The other side of the coin is over sort of Europe, well, I don't know, Europe, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. They have Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, when the war was finished, and they acknowledge how many people died in that war. And they all continue not celebrating, but they continue Remembrance Day, so that nobody forgets how bad it was. It's more like, if you keep going, we're going to end up there again. And you've only got to look at the old movies and stories, these soldiers' diaries from the First, Second World War, to find out how bad it actually was.
Yeah.
But if all that's erased, it'll be like kids watch a video game. They play a video game, they shoot each other, blow each other up, and it doesn't matter because you get up, the figure gets up and carries on. As the kids get older, they'll go out and shoot someone and think, why haven't they got up yet? You've got to have that reminder. And as Helen says, for slavery, anything, I think you need that as a reminder of what the old beliefs led to that. And it's time we carried on life, but we always acknowledge our past.
I think the statues, for example, instead of pulling them down, they need to have a message attached to them.
Oh, yeah.
That says, this is who we were, this is how we behaved, It's not where we're going, but look at this and realize we could go back there. I think that's more important. Sandy.
Yeah, I totally agree, Helen. We need to have we need to put history in context, and the disclaimer below the statues is very important. We need to know where we've come from to know where we are and where we're going.
Yeah. You can't go on a journey if you don't have a starting point.
Yeah.
And if you take the statue away that's the starting point, where are you going? And what are you going for? And it's interesting, Anita said, and this has been my argument, I totally agree with it. People fought and died in wars for freedom. And that fact will be wiped out. If we destroy our history, that's going to be lost too. So what's Caroline said, I'll just look at a couple more and then we need to stop. People are probably getting fed up with the conversation. Good to explore. Beliefs. Are we allowing ourselves to be manipulated by listening to what is happening in our world? I.e., let's get rid of banks. So we don't spread COVID through using money. That's happening in England. Well, I think internet banking is great, but I do think that we need banks, physical places. But I agree, but that's fear-based. That's the belief that's fear-based. If we could turn that into a positive, let's use internet banking because it's going to build this or create that, then yes. But as a fear-based, because it's spreading it through money, yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Oh, here we go. What does Sarupa say? The statues weren't lest we forget, as they don't display how far we've come and why we don't do that anymore. Well, I think for a lot of people will see a statue and they won't know what that statue is about. And if there's nothing on it that tells you who that person was, I mean, it might say he was the Lord Mayor of the town, but if it doesn't tell you that he was also a whaler, ran a whaling company, or he was a slaver, or then you don't have that point. You're quite right, Sarupa. I thought this is a good one. That Anam says, David Suzuki, I'm sorry, Anam, I don't know who he is, said that all students studying science should also study history. I totally agree. I think no matter what you study, you should study history.
Yeah.
Because without history, who we are and where we've come from. Always remembering one thing, that history is written by the victor. Not by the one that's defeated.
But sometimes there are no victors, are there?
So we've talked about beliefs and we've talked about different beliefs, but have we come to any conclusion, or have we just enjoyed having a conversation? Does the audience think that we've come to any conclusion? I'm going to get the panel to answer this, but while you're answering that, I'm asking the audience, what do you feel we've achieved by this conversation tonight? Okay, what were you going to say, Tracy?
I feel through this conversation, it's highlighted how beliefs do impact our ability to speak freely. It brings it to light. It brings to the awareness. And there were a few different examples that we like living through our childhood.
Yeah.
And like what Sonia was saying, my first thought was, I noticed that my experience with Chinese people, they're more respectful to elders than I feel here in Australia.
Yeah.
And then when Sonia said that, I thought, oh, wow, that could be why.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Have an understanding.
So, yeah, that's a light bulb on for me. Yeah.
That's good. Sonia.
I feel, for me, through this conversation, I understand more how the beliefs is whether we notice or not, it's always at the back. It actually impacts, and how if we want to change, like we start with the changing our beliefs, and then we can how do you say, act it out? Like we can be different. Yeah, if we want to make a difference, we have to really like look at what beliefs is really stopping us. Yeah.
Okay. Pia?
It's also about, I agree with that. It's also about knowing that something needs to be reassessed. And then looking at it and saying, well, what about this does need to be reassessed? How can it be changed? And, going both ways, because the beliefs create the habit. And if it's looked at from both sides, if you consciously do the habits and then work with the belief systems as well, it's like a two-pronged effect or an impact to change.
Yeah, but that's a one-person answer. And
Right.
a lot of people, see what I mean? And a lot of people won't spend the time doing that.
Then conversation is the best thing.
Yeah, people on a spiritual journey will do it, but people that aren't on a conscious spiritual journey, that's too much. They might look at the beliefs and they might try to change a belief genuinely. But to go into all that work, I don't think a lot of people would. Tandy?
From the little that I've heard of the conversation, I really I appreciate the conversation about being politically correct. I believe if you're going to talk to people, the first thing you should say is, I don't mean to offend everybody, but if we're gonna get anywhere, we have to be honest about how we feel, and I think that will make people talk instead of being politically correct, and I think the hard conversations will be had, and we will make progress with where we need to go.
There's two problems to having free speech. Political correctness is one. And what do you think the other might be? And you've just touched on it. People taking things personally instead of being willing to look at the big picture. Because we've been talking about the big picture to a degree. And if we can talk about the big picture without taking it personally. So let's see. Do people think we've reached a conclusion? Sarupa says no conclusion. We've seemed to share what we believe, which is great. Ola, it's given us the awareness that our beliefs absolutely have an effect on how we are, both positive and negative. Caroline, beliefs can be changed if we're open to listening to others' perceptions, listening with an open heart. Anita, just having the discussion and conversation without people clubbing each other into agreement is wonderful, beneficial and enjoyable. Absolutely, Anita. We're going to do the clubbing when this live broadcast is finished. Elaine, I agree totally with Tandaway, though I feel that there are many people don't know what they feel, only what they think they are to be. I think it's true. I don't think you can come to a conclusion in a conversation like this. I think it's about starting a conversation, starting a discussion and an awareness. And, I'm going to put it out there. Are these the kind of conversations people want to have? And if they are, then let us know. Put it on the Facebook post. Somebody's asked, can we talk about manipulation? And Tracy's dropped a doozy into the conversation about education and how people are stereotyped because they don't fit the box. Are these conversations that people are interested in having? And if they are, great. And if not, well, we'll just enjoy our Monday nights and we just won't bother doing this anymore. So that's fine. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to Tony.
Thank you, Hannah.
To Sonia, to Tracy, to Pia, and to Tandy for persevering even with the dropping in and out. Thank you so much for being part of this broadcast. And thank you all for joining us. Please let us know how you feel, and we might come back next month. Talk to you later. Bye for now.
Bye.
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 Bye.